Let's try again. Oh, here
Okay.
we are.
Hello there, friends and sane persons. It's Wednesday. Oh, wait, no, that's the wrong show.
It's it's Wednesday, Saturday,
Yeah,
whimsy
it's not
cast.
Wednesday. That works. I'm still Kyle, and welcome as we continue the journey through the top 100 best board games ever, at least for now. And we're going to be finalizing that series we've done on the last couple of episodes of Wednesday Whimsy, but here on Saturday, as we go through my top 20 through number one.
Yeah, and I hope it worked well. At first, it showed there is no recording. Now it shows there is recording, and it seems like it's working. Yay!
Oh, well, okay. I hope
Yeah,
so.
we're
Have you
good. We're good.
checked?
I
If
checked.
only
We're
there
good.
were a link you could click to check. Um,
What?
yes, it does
Where?
say we're on the air. All right.
We're
You
streaming
have
for
to be polite.
ourselves. There's no one else. Nobody's gonna see that.
Well, that's usually the case.
Yeah, it's true. Anyway, yeah. So this is your last 20. This is your sacred ground. Your the tip of the iceberg. Your
Um,
ev-
I'm not entirely sure you're using all of those terms correctly, but
I
that's
know.
okay.
I know. I know. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm here to make to steer up this logical explanation of games and throw in
Hmm.
some
Random
Cthulhian
crap. Okay.
Cthulhian chaos.
I was going to say tomfoolery, but uh,
Yeah.
all right. Well, I guess we've got a lot of games to talk about, and so I guess we probably should just get going. But if you are wondering about what the rest of the top 100 is, that's the last four episodes of Wednesday Whimsy. You can hear me talk briefly about all these games. Of this top 20, there are this is a this is a part of the list that tends to stay fairly static, but a couple of the old sort of top 20 games has shuffled down to the 30s. So there's a couple of new ones here. I believe there's probably three games here that are brand new, meaning that I've played within the last, 12 months for the first time. And the rest are kind of old stalwarts that I've just been focusing on a little bit more lately.
Okay.
So I guess if we're ready to get going, we can
We
start.
we are. Give me a
All right.
tiny moment, and I'll be there for you.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm
So here
glad.
we are. Boom.
Okay.
Look
So
at
we're going
that.
to start here with my number 20. My number 20 is a fascinating game that is an old one, and although some versions might say that it has like 25-year anniversary, it definitely isn't. But the game is The Castles of Burgundy,
Mm.
which is a classic game from classic game designer Stefan Feld. This is a game that shot back onto my tabletop recently with the release of the special edition, which is basically just a fancier version of the same old game. This game is a game where you are rolling dice. You have 25 turns. You'll roll two dice and you'll use them to do certain actions. The actions are fairly simple. It could be taking a tile from this market and putting it on your little board, or then sort of placing it where it goes in your tableau. You're trying to trigger different bonuses. You're trying to fill in these groupings of colors, and you're trying to do so as quickly and as efficiently as possible because, again, you only have the 25 turns of the game. It works really well. Now, thematically, there's nothing there. I mean, not even an attempt. And, depending on which version you have, the game could be incredibly ugly. The version we're looking at here is the nice version with decent artwork
Yeah.
and nice production and some large minis for the castles, which kind of makes them stand out because they're castles, but are also extremely unnecessary. But the older versions of the game ranged from pretty bad to hideous, and and the quality was pretty bad. But it's a game that has held up, and I think I saw that you said it was or the website said it was out from like 2011. So it's
Yeah.
definitely, been around a while and kind of held its own and stood the test of time. I had, it's one that I've always been interested in, but the release of this new edition has just brought it back how much I love the game. The new edition, again, it's nicer, but it also includes all of the different modules that had come out in various expansions over the years. And one new one where you set up this vineyard board, it's a sideboard, and you're also filling that up. And that gives you a bunch of bonuses, and you're trying to connect different colors of grapes. But each of the grape tokens you take will fill up 2/3 of your little storage area. So you have to be kind of careful and judicious about when you're taking them. Anyway, this is a game I really enjoy, and I always look for it. In fact, I played it with my mother when she was visiting last week. It's the rules are just so easy to get into. It's great.
Okay. Sure.
And you love this game.
I love this game in an
Have you
alternative
played it?
timeline where I'm a three-legged crab, roaming the wasteland of post-apocalyptic
It'd be difficult to be a
human
three-legged crab.
society. Yeah, I know.
Have you actually played this game, or you just
I've played
decided
it.
it didn't look that interesting?
No, I played it. I played a long time ago. I played it. I played the first version, whatever 2011 version. I think I played it
Okay.
around 2013 or something like that. It was quite new at that time. Cult of the New, and it didn't look great. I played it for some reason, even though at that time I didn't really enjoy any of the ugly games, let's say. And this one, yeah, it's just so mechanical. It's Stefan Feld. It's just not for me.
All
Not at
right.
all.
There we
Okay.
are. But it's for me, and it's my number 20. Let's go on now to I won't say brand new, but a new game. This is one that exploded onto my tabletop earlier in the year, and I've talked about it on a lot of occasions because I really enjoyed it. The game is Masters of the Universe Clash for Eternia. Again, there are two Masters of the Universe games that came out in spring of 2023. Clash for Eternia is the good one. Fields of Eternia is awful and not worth mentioning. Just other than avoid it and get this one instead. So this is the game that I wanted when I was a child. I was a huge He-Man fan. I mean, I watched He-Man every day. I had 100 action figures. I played with them all the time. I had the big play sets. I was just so into He-Man. And that was the first sort of major disappointment of my life, was when He-Man was discontinued and it was no longer shown anymore. And this was before the days where you had the box set with the DVDs, and it was before the days where you could find everything online. And He-Man disappeared from my world. They stopped selling the toys. I was heartbroken. But if this game had been around when I was, okay, not a young child, but a 12-ish, I would have played this every single day. In the game, you are going to take some characters from the Masters of the Universe, and you are going to play them against some other characters. Now, ideally, one player will take a set of bad guys, and another player will take a set of heroic characters, and you'll kind of fight them out like that. But you don't have to. You can mix and match. You can build the dream team you want. There's no reason you can't do that, and that's fantastic. One person will control a team of three, and that's an oddity of the rules. Whereas the other player will choose at the start of the game whether they want to have 1, 2, 3, or 4 heroes or characters. And that's kind of important because if you have one, your character is activating every single turn. If you have 4, you're going to be spread a little bit thin, but you have access to more special abilities, and that can make it interesting. And then there's a bunch of scenarios. You play the scenarios. The scenarios are quick. You move, you roll dice, you attack. You've got sort of the exploding dice type thing as well. It's just a lot of fun. I need mine to be painted because I think it will look much better if it is. But this game is just, it is a Masters of the Universe He-Man fan's dream. I'm hoping, no official word on this, but there were some Thundercat sets that were made for Zombicide, and so I'm hoping eventually for some sort of a crossover with this system. That would just be even better. But I love the IP, and I recognize that my love for that does inspire my fervor for this game. But the game itself is just so fun, and it's so simple and easy to get into. Teach it in 5 minutes. Not really, anything brainy or burnery or anything like that. Just fun, just great. And my number 19, one of the best new games that I've discovered recently.
Okay, sure. All right.
And you are too young to have been mega into He-Man, and too European, and probably haven't played this one.
No, I'm not. I mean, I'm not too young. I'm a
You're not
90s
too young for
child.
He-Man? Yeah, but He-Man is an 80s cartoon.
Okay, I thought it's 90s. Okay.
Well, there are some various versions that have come up in the 90s. There was He-Man in Space, and then in early 2000, there was a new sort of re-implementation of He-Man, and you could have experienced that. But the original, old school stuff was from early 80s, actually.
Okay, I went straight to Japanese animes and Dragon Ball and stuff.
Well, I'll tell you, the animation on old He-Man is
Abysmal?
pretty spectacular. Anyway,
All right.
let's go on to number 18. Number 18, I guess kind of ironic or fitting with its name, has kind of risen from the ashes for me, and that game is Ashes Rise of the Phoenixborn.
Okay.
So the game itself is the same. Nothing has changed about the game. It's kind of come back into print. It's kind of finished. They're not putting out more stuff for it. This is one of those sort of two-player head-to-head games where you'll take a deck of people, of cards, and you're sort of attacking the other person, trying to clear out their row of minions so you can attack their core character. It's an interesting game where the deck building can be interesting if you want to get into that, but I usually just play with the base decks. And there's this dice aspect of it as well. You have 10 dice, and those are your resources. And that really factors into the deck building because you have to sort of pick the dice that will match the cards you want to use. So the core game had kind of fallen off my list just because it's such a hard game to teach someone else. It's a game that
Mm-hmm.
if you don't have familiarity with the different characters and decks and what they do, it's not going to be very fun, and one person will just wipe the floor with the other. Now, that's okay sometimes, but I prefer to have a more competitive experience. And in walks sort of the saving grace for this game, and that is the Red Rains expansion. So, Red Rains takes the Ashes concept and makes it into a solo or cooperative game. And what this means is I can play it, right? I can definitely find someone who's willing to play a solo game with me. Uh, and I do. I mean, the Red Rain system is so intuitive. You have a little bit of variety because there's two sets now, so you can kind of customize the villain you're fighting against. But it allows you to sort of play Ashes full bore against a very simple set of rules for an AI opponent, and it is magical. It is. I mean, that has taken this game, which might not even have been on my list, and pulled it back into the top 20 because it is just so much fun to play. And you can experiment and try the different things and really get back into Ashes. And I applaud them for trying something new. They have promised there will be, I believe, 7 sets of Red Rains. So 7 sort of big bads that you can fight against. And of course, you can mix and match those as well. And I am so impressed by this. And it's risen from the ashes for me.
Okay. Yeah. I don't have anything to add. I played it too long ago. Yeah,
And
it
only
felt like
once. And
Oh yeah, I played only once, but that's where it felt like, yeah, definitely. If if the other person, your opponent, has more experience with the game, it's not going to be fun. It's this balance of experience. It really, I really felt that. And the game itself was okay. It's, it's CCG LCG, like, 1 versus 1 combat. Add some dice. I mean, it's not like this dice mechanism felt anything extremely innovative or extremely necessary. I mean, it felt like, yet another Magic the Gathering clone type thing. But yeah, okay.
yeah, I won't recommend buying the game just to buy the expansion to play it cooperatively. But if you are into especially solo, I mean the solo for this, ooh, so good. I can set this up and just play. I mean, I'll play just a rotating cast of 6 Phoenixborn, and play 6 games in a row. It's just that much fun for me. So
Okay.
Ashes, but specifically with Red Rains.
All right.
All right. Next one. So the last few games you haven't had a whole lot of experience with. The next one I believe you probably do, and that game is Scythe. So Scythe is, of course, a great game.
Probably.
It has an odd kind of flavor of engine building as you're kind of upgrading these characters. You've got your special abilities. You're moving around this board and
No.
doing different things, ultimately with the goal of activating these end game sort of star conditions.
One little thing I want to say is that it shows it's re-implemented by My Little Scythe,
Oh,
and
well,
it makes me giggle.
that does. That's kind of funny. My Little Scythe is very much a children's version of this game, and I don't find to be that enjoyable for adults. But
Yeah. Anyway.
regular Scythe is fantastic. Regular Scythe, I've got everything for regular Scythe. I've got this enormous box, and in the game, though, at its core, what you're doing is it's almost more of an efficiency puzzle than anything else, because
Huh?
you're trying to get to these goals faster and waste less time. I don't know what some of this stuff is.
Yeah. What's that?
Um,
That's like
um,
print and play.
it looks like somebody's made some player aids for it. Anyway, the combat in Scythe is almost more of a distraction than anything else. Usually, you can do it, and if you win, it helps you toward your goal at least twice. But really, what the game is about is
What's going
upgrading your
on?
actions. I don't know
Like,
what you're doing here. Um,
I'm trying
that's
to find the real picture, and all the
that's a real
pictures are
picture.
like,
Oh,
no, it's not. Like, all the pictures I'm finding are some weird print and play things. Anyway,
well, that guy looks really bored playing Scythe.
that's weird. Look,
Well,
look. I'm scrolling through all of the pictures, and
oh,
I'm
trust me.
okay.
I've done this before.
Okay. Anyway, yeah.
Anyway, there's a couple of expansions for Scythe. 2 are great. 1 is mediocre. And honestly, I mix them all together at times. Although the sort of airship one or Wind Raiders or whatever it was called is underwhelming at best. But the other 2 are great. They'll add sort of different modules and different characters you can use, and I find a lot of joy in this game. I do definitely prefer it at lower player counts, and I recognize I may be in the minority there. But I find in a lower player count game, it allows you to kind of focus and do what you want to do without necessarily worrying about others interfering with you. So my
Hmm.
ideal player count is probably 3 or less. And I will say I have played a whole lot of Scythe solo. The solo mode in this is one of my favorites. Now, I have played with higher player counts. I've not gone all the way up to 7, which even the rules suggest not doing. It's one of my favorite rulebook moments is we strongly recommend not doing this, but we know that people will, so here are some rules to make it work. Uh, but I really enjoy this game. I enjoy that turns are fast usually. and that you kind of get to have all these experiences of making yourself feel great as you race sort of for these goals. Great game. Number 17.
Yeah, if you've seen my top 100 games from a few months ago, I enjoy the game quite much. And I recently, so there's one. You've seen Gregor on the show once,
Yes.
and he's the one who hasn't played the game yet, and
Oh,
so we were like,
you
we
made him
need
play
to
My
play it.
Little Scythe without playing this one?
No, My Little Scythe was a coincidence and was not my fault at all. It was the choice of another person who I hate now. Not true, but I mean, it just whatever. It was situational thing, and My
That
Little Scythe
escalated quickly.
is a garbage game for gamers. Um. Anyway, yeah, Scythe. Yeah, so we we'll be playing Scythe at some point. I forgot that I avoided the modular map, by the way, and I
Oh,
forgot that I
it's
ordered the
mediocre.
yeah. I didn't want it because my box is full with stuff, so it's like, okay, how can I fit it so the lid will close nicely? Anyway, I forgot that I ordered the modular board along with the apiary to get free shipping for the champions, and I forgot about them. I was recently talking with somebody about something. Like, I do have everything except Metal Mech and modular board, and I don't want a modular board. And I'm like, oh wait, I did order that anyway.
I believe
But
you were
I mean,
telling me about that.
yeah, yeah. Anyway, yeah. So it's an amazing game. It has a lot of things going on. I agree that 3-player game is amazing. Player count as we played. So we started. I think we started Rise of Fenris campaign with 5 players, and there were 2 girls with us who they were kind of interested, but it was maybe a little bit overwhelming of a game for them, so they didn't really continue playing with us. So there was like, okay, 3 of us left, whatever, and then we played it as a 3-player game, and it really shined in a campaign as well. So yeah,
So the the magic of 3-player Scythe is, of course, those bonus or the recruit action or whatever. You're activating it for every player, and I think that adds a lot of magic to the game.
yeah. I mean, you need to have Rise of Fenris. For example, the initial, like the original Scythe game, let's say, and let's say you get extra factions. Forget about the airships. Airships is good if you want to get the alternative end game conditions. Then
Which are
you
nice.
should you still should get the expansion, and you can decide for yourself if you like the ships or not. I skip the ships, but I definitely can play with the rest of the expansion. Anyway, if you play it without Rise of Fenris, I mean, 4 and 5 is also good, and I think the higher player count with the original game is better. But once you get into Rise of Fenris, where you get the possibilities to build yourself up easier, have those special upgrades, and 3 actions, like you turn it over and then you get the resources on the turn 1, and then you just cross the river, and so you are engaging with each other faster. Then I think 3-player game is then better than a 5-player game, just because now you're so much faster running towards the center, and with
True.
5-players games it can be a little bit of a chaos. That's my opinion on that.
Very well. Well, good. Well, finally, one you have some experience with. Let's now move on to my number 16.
Sweet
Number
16.
16. I don't remember if I've played this one with you. You might have found it on your own. This is a great game. It's one of those games that just fills me with joy because it's just so much, just do what you want to do. And that game is Cthulhu Death May Die.
I've not played that one.
Oh, well, then there you go. You might enjoy it. This is a game where you are investigators fighting against some great horror from beyond our ken. In the base game, it's Cthulhu and then another character who shouldn't be named. And
Rasputin.
you are going to go through No, his name starts with an H. There is a Rasputin in the game. You're going to pick one of the investigators, and the investigators are going to be going up against these horrors. And it's a very modular game. So you'll select the big bad you want to face. You'll select a scenario, and there's 6 that come in the base box. And then you'll kind of shuffle those 2 together. And so that will tell you sort of which bad guys you're having, which sort of events you're going through, kind of the mission that you're going to be playing. That's what the scenario is. And the big bad, obviously, is what you're trying to fight. And from that, you're going to set up the board and just kind of jump in. You do 3 actions on your turn, which is moving, recovering your health, or fighting something. It's pretty much that easy. You've got the dice that you're rolling, and you can always re-roll them. Sort of the hook of the game is this madness mechanism. At the top of your little player sheet, there's these, you can kind of see it in the bottom right corner there. But as you're going to go up through these madness thresholds when you take certain types of damage. When you hit a threshold, you upgrade one of your special abilities. At certain thresholds, you're going to get to roll extra green dice, which are better. But also, you're going to activate your own weird quirk that you start the game with. Like maybe when you kind of have an episode, you have to steal something from somebody else. And if you can't, you suffer some sort of a stress. Or, you have to lie down and take a nap. Or various things that are going to trigger at these different thresholds, which are sometimes positive and sometimes negative. And managing those is another aspect of the game. Ultimately, you will eventually complete the mission, which makes the big bad appear so that you can take it down. You take it down a certain number of times, and you win the game. If everybody goes crazy first, then you lose the game, or if the sort of bad guy advances its scheme a certain number of times, you also lose the game. I find in this game, and one thing I really like about it, is that if I win, I'm usually within a turn of losing. And if I lose, I could have won, with just one more action. And I like how that balance works. You never really feel like you're being steamrolled. Sometimes you feel like you're being steamrolled, but you actually are sort of progressing at the same rate that you need to be. So you never feel too strong. You never feel too weak. I love that. I love that there are these modular bad guys you can mix in. The only problem I have with the game is that for whatever reason, the publisher thinks what this game needs is more player characters and not more big bads. And so now, there's probably 70 player characters who are all kind of a little bit different, but you're only going to use one each game. And there's only, I think, like 4 big bads. And then the sort of expansion that's coming out through the Kickstarter is going to add 2 more. And I think that balance is way off. I don't think we need any more characters. I think we need more of the monsters. But that's it. That is what it is. Maybe those ones are harder to make and balance. So that's probably part of it. But I just love this game. It's a game that if I have people over who want something fun but not complicated, this is one of the first things I will go to, especially at Halloween time, or especially with people who have some sort of affinity for Cthulhu or sort of that type of eldritch monster. This is just a fantastic game. I really enjoy it.
All right. Okay.
And you don't because you've not played it, but I know where you can.
True.
I just need to convince my painter that he wants to paint all my stuff.
You need some Nuln oil.
Some more Nuln oil. I'd have to buy a pound of the Nuln oil. All right. Let's move on then to my number 15. And this is another one I don't think you have played, although I talk about it a lot. And this is just one of my very favorite games, and that is Dune Imperium.
I've not.
So Dune Imperium is one of the tensest games at 3 players. This game just gets my heart beating. I will say the board does not look great. Don't judge this one based on its looks. I don't love the Dune theme either. I've read some of the books. I find them to get really bad really quickly. The movie was kind of boring, but the game here, I think, is great. What you're
Hmm.
doing is you're building up your deck and you're using the cards to place your workers. There's a couple of worker spots that you can go to, and you're trying ultimately to position yourself on these tracks to sort of move up to get. Ultimately, it's a race to 10 points. Whoever gets to 10 points first will trigger the end of the game, and then who happens to have the most will win. And the ways you can do that are by influencing these different factions, and then by winning these combats. When you go into the combat, at the end of every round, there's a combat, and it's for some sort of goal. You see what the goal is at the start of the round, so you can decide, yeah, that's one I want to invest heavily in. Or, you know what, it's just going to get me 3 coins. I've already got plenty of coins. I'm not going to waste my time there. And so that can be an interesting aspect of it too, is you're sort of timing how you're going to interact with these. And so if the prize is something nobody wants, well, the one person who puts 1 soldier in there just gets it all. Are you going to let the person do that? The deck building aspect is interesting, but it's a slower deck builder. You're not going to go through your deck very quickly. There aren't that many ways to kind of ramp things up. There are some, and you can kind of build around that. And there are actions to let you sort of draw more cards and things. But ultimately, that's a smaller aspect of it. It's more sort of this gauging where people are going to go and what they're going to do. There's 2 expansions for it. They're both great, very easy to add in. Not something that, I would set it up and teach it with these expansions as though they were part of the main rules. And the only way somebody would know that something was an expansion is because, maybe there's this little overlay on the board. I find a 3-player game is where this one is at. 2-player and solo, it's good, but it's not as great because you've got to kind of use this extra opponent that's run by a deck of cards, and it kind of makes random choices, which never feel as good, right? If I win against something that chose a card randomly, I feel like I got lucky. If I win against you because I played better than you, I feel like I outsmarted you. So with both of the expansions, it's great. With 3 players and 4 players, it's great. I don't think you can play this one with more than 4. There is a new version of this, and I'm struggling with, that's the Uprising version. I'm struggling with whether I'm going to buy that or not, because it looks like it's 95% the exact same game with a few minor tweaks on some of the spaces. And I'm not sure I really need to have both. But that's the Uprising. Yeah, that's the new version. It adds an interesting new rule, but I don't know that it really, even the board there looks almost exactly the same.
Yeah, they didn't learn the lesson.
What? Well, yeah, I wish that they had gone a little bit better on the graphic design. This is, look, it's clear and clean, but it's not great looking. They're hey, anyway. But those are my thoughts. I really enjoy Dune Imperium. Every time I play it, I think, why don't I play this every day? And that's really one of those things that I love to feel about a game. So there you go. My number 15, Dune Imperium.
Yeah. Okay.
I might have to force you to play this one. Victor likes this, so we can probably get a game together.
No, the one thing I didn't look, I love Lost Ruins Vornek, and the main thing I don't want to play this one. I don't like race to the point, and this one has race to the points, and this is one of the mechanisms I usually kind of hate. In some instances, I'm fine with that, and there are some exceptions, of course. But yeah, I just don't like race to the points. It makes me angry.
Every game with points is a race to points.
Race to the certain amount of points so you can instantly win. That's what I hate usually.
I see.
With few exceptions. Yeah, that's why I didn't play.
You might like this one. Maybe I'll. I don't know. I'm still in the air about Uprising. It does include a 6-player mode, which this guy's never going to play. So, because that just sounds awful. Anyway, Dune Imperium by itself or with its two sort of actual expansions, I think is just fantastic.
All right.
Let's go on to a brand new game. I mean, this is the newest game on my list. I discovered this one at the Dice Tower Retreat. I've just played a lot of this game. I love this game. The game is called Sky Team.
Okay.
I'm assuming you've not played Sky Team.
No.
So Sky Team is a cooperative dice game. And you are the pilot and co-pilot of a plane, and your goal is to land it successfully. And you do so because just like all pilots and co-pilots who sit in the cockpit together next to each other, you don't talk to each other. You're sitting there and unable to communicate. But what you're doing is, and so that's really just a gameplay mechanism, but what you're trying to do is there's a bunch of different goals and features on this plane, and you have to bring the plane to its destination by the end of the last round. You have to land it. You have to get your brakes ready so that you can stop the plane. You have to deploy your landing gear and the various flaps to control your aerodynamics. And you're just doing this over the course of several rounds, and you'll roll your dice, and on your turn, you'll place one. There's two spots that you have to activate each turn, and you activate them together with the other player. So what the other player does will influence you. For example, the axis. If you put a high number there and the other person puts a low number, it'll tilt the plane one way or the other. And if you tilt it too far, that's not good. And then your speed is also a cooperative aspect. But the communication in this game is really interesting because it's all nonverbal. I'm putting this die here, and I'm really hoping that you understand that the reason I'm putting a 2 here is because I want to go really slowly this round. And there's a reason for that, and it's whatever here. There are a bunch of modules then, after you sort of play the sort of plain vanilla game, which is extremely easy. The tutorial scenario, really easy. Everything else, not so easy. You sort of have a different scenario. So instead of trying to land in Toronto with no special features, we're going to try and land in Atlanta, and we have to train our intern while we're in flight, and we have a whole lot of air traffic that's just gumming up the works. Or, you're landing in, I don't know, Heathrow Airport, and you have a fuel leak. And so there's this other sort of mechanism you're using to control the fuel leak. Or there's wind that can be added in. And you never dump everything in, right? It's always just a little bit, and it's sort of scenario-based, but the scenarios are just, a different airport. And so, but you can make it as difficult as you'd like it to be. And it's one that I often find that, just like Cthulhu Death May Die, you're winning or losing just kind of on the knife's edge. And it's also about a 15-minute game. So this is one of those games when it's nighttime, I've got someone staying with me, and, we want to play one more game before going to bed. This is the one I will bring out. And because it's high tension, fast paced, cooperative, which some people don't like, but in this one I think it doesn't have many of the problems some cooperative games have. But you get this great full experience in just a very short amount of time, low on rules, but really high on fun. I mean, I have played this game. I was going to check and see how many times I've played it in the last little while. I played it 25 times since September, which is kind of a lot. And I really like Sky Team, and it's one of those games that I just want to introduce everybody to.
All right. I might be able to play this one here.
You might be able to fit in 14 or 15 minutes to try a game.
Yeah, that's a lot of time.
I know,
but I'll be able to. Yeah. Anyway.
All right. So we're moving back from games that you have no experience with to games that you do know relatively well. And the next one is the most complicated deck building game there is, Imperium. Either classics or legends, they're the same game.
Yeah.
This is just a fascinating 2-player only game. 1 or 2 player game. I made the
Two-player
mistake
game.
of trying.
Yeah.
I made the mistake of
Two-player.
trying it at 4,
How could you?
and that was a
It's
mistake. It's a 1 or
blasphemy.
2 player game.
Yeah.
Um,
Don't.
so in this game, you have different civilizations, and they all have slightly different ways that they're playing. They're trying to sort of work towards different goals, and it's a deck building game, right? You're going to play cards. You're going to add them to your
Ooh.
deck. An interesting. Oh, what are those?
Yeah, I like
An
those.
interesting feature of the game is that the deck kind of builds itself as well, right? There's some things you get to do, and then there's some things that the game will kind of add to you as you sort of run through your deck. You're sort of forced to take a card off of a certain pile and put it in, and I find that
Yeah.
interesting. I the only thing I don't like about the game is, well, it has a terrible rule book, and it's difficult to
Yes.
teach because
Yes.
it uses a whole bunch of different terms to mean slightly different variations of the same thing. There's acquire a card, and then there's another version that's like grow a card or something. And they're just basically slightly different iterations on the same concept. And I find that can be difficult for people to grasp. If you play it 15 times in a row, you've got it down. And which is why the solo for this is fantastic, because you can actually, because all the different scenario or the different civilizations are different, you'd think, okay, how can you do that in a solo experience? But you can. The solo system is just brilliant and allows you to sort of experience. You can pick which one you want to do and experience a version of your opponent's civilization that would be like what you would experience if someone were actually controlling it. It's challenging and fun, and it's a great way to kind of get in and relearn all of those terms if you're teaching it to somebody else soon. Not speaking from experience here. I really like this game. I think it's a lot of fun. The artwork's a little quirky. The card quality is not amazing, but the game itself is great. I was able to consolidate both boxes into one, which is nice because really, I mean, I couldn't tell you, other than that I know that the Egyptians are for some reason from the Legends section, whereas the Romans are from the Classics. It sort of blurs the lines after that as to which is in
Yeah.
which box. And there's more stuff coming out eventually someday, probably, we hope. It's been announced and delayed, but we'll see. But this is a game I love and always want to come back to.
Yeah. This is the one. It's hard to. At first, it's hard to justify to bring it out on the table. First of all, I don't always play it. I don't play solo, and I don't always play 2-player only. Like, we don't have two-player only board game nights. Not always. Sometimes I have like 3 or more players. That's why I don't bring it out. Second is how to teaching this game. Explaining the things. Like, it's like, I'm making this stuff up, but it's like raise the city to acquire a barrel, and it means like discard a card to get resource on that card. It's like, okay, why? But I understand the concept behind the terminology in a sense, but for example, depending on the nation, the same thing can be named like, for Romans it's raise, for Atlanteans it's sink, for Arthurians it's I don't know, find whatever, but it's all the
Quest.
same thing. Like, it's a quest, whatever. It's like, oh, draw a card. It means like draw a card or discard a card.
Or discard a card.
I mean, like, it literally is that. That's what makes me angry, and at the same time, and I'm always thinking, like, each time I play the game, like, ooh, amazing. But each time time passes, I'm like, ooh, should I bring this out for tonight's game night? I'm like, oh, I don't know. I need like a lot of encouragement to just bring it out. But once I start playing that and remember the rules again, remember the things, and take the new civilization I have not played, and at first I was afraid of the more challenging civilizations, but the challenge is not the rules themselves. The challenge is how efficiently you can you can use it. And I'm like Atlanteans, I really enjoyed it because I like culling decks in deck building. And Atlanteans is like, I just found I'm like, I had basically I had like at the end I had like 5 cards in my deck, and I drew 5 cards, did the stuff with them. Ooh, I have to shuffle. Oh, the same 5 cards. Like, and I build the amazing agent engine with those cards. The cards themselves, they just correlated with each other, and like I just won by a mile. And this is something that this game allowed you to do. And of course, it has those tropes of uh, it's procedural. It's you have to do it in that way, and you kind of feel limited within your own nation because like you have your stack of cards. The special cards you get from your own deck, and you get them. uh, there is some choice, but like I just get an extra card from my deck. There is a common market, but common market cards are not as interesting. You're not getting them that much. This deck building aspect is extremely tight, in my opinion, and it feels limited, but it feels very satisfying at the same time.
There you go. I agree.
All right.
Well, let's go keep on going with games that I think you've played. We're going to go on to another great game, one that I actually haven't played in a little while, and I really need to change that, and that is Dinosaur Island. Dinosaur Island is a game that just, I mean, this is a huge table hog. Even the rules suggest that step one of your setup should be making sure you have enough space. Um, this game is all about building up your own dinosaur theme park where you have dinosaurs and also some roller coasters. And you are, okay, I will say the game color choice is intentional and a little odd. But what you're doing here is you are kind of doing whatever you want in your dinosaur theme park. You have to focus on gaining the DNA so you can make additional dinosaurs. You're trying to fill up your board, of course, because that's your efficiency there, right? The more efficient you use your space, the better you can have it. But what you really want is to have a park that is exciting, because when it's exciting, people will come to it. When people come to it, that gets you money. When people then, you then have to sort of line everybody up and make sure there's enough room for everyone in the park, because people in the park will get you points, although only people who are alive in the park will get you points. If people die, well, that's not a great thing. So you also need to focus on your park security. Just a nice balance between the different elements and aspects here. There's different phases of the game, distinct phases. Most of them are pretty easy. There's a draft die phase, there's a build tiles phase, there's a buy cards phase, different kind of simple, distinct aspects of the game. And then it comes together nicely. The way you're trying to end the game is by completing these different common goals. And it's
Mm-hmm.
kind of odd because the game says it gives you a short, medium, and long version. And I find short to be far too short. That is, I want to play 2 rounds of the game and be done. It's almost the demo version. There's medium, which I find to be just about perfect, and long, which can be a little on the long side. But if it's somebody who already knows the game, medium or long is the way to go. There's an expansion that adds a bunch of different things, including special player powers. You get your own unique meeples. You get goals like trying to fill your park and build things in a certain way, and also water dinosaurs. Which, sure, why not? Those are fun. But I just find Dinosaur Island to be a magical game, a game that just is so much fun that I'm always wanting to get back to. And okay, it's huge. It has a lot going against it, but everything that's going for it speaks so much louder. I do like this one better than Dinosaur World, which is kind of from the same publisher and the same theme, but ultimately a different game, which I do also enjoy. But I just find Dinosaur Island has a lot more magic for me.
Yeah, it was fun. it's I don't know. The game looks bigger than it is. It seems
It is
it's
pretty
much.
big.
It's a table hog, but I mean the level of complexity is not as huge as high as the game looks.
That's true. It is not
It's
very complicated at all, actually.
Yeah, and there's some aspects that I really enjoyed, and there's some aspects that felt a little bit boring. Like, I like the game, but maybe the expansion would have added some extra. But then I looked at the price of the expansion, like, okay, so this is 80 euros, and expansions is about the same price. Like, nope, I don't want
Yeah.
to get the expansion to see if it will add enough for me.
That is a lot of money to spend just to try something. I will say the expansion has about as much stuff as the base game, which is probably something to do with the cost. I think it adds a lot. I don't think I ever take it out now that it's in, but I can understand being somewhat reserved at spending that much money.
Yeah.
Um, so, but for me, this game's magic.
All right.
All right, we're going back into the world of games you have not played. I'm assuming you
Thankfully.
still have not played this one. Thankfully,
No,
you
I'm
prefer
kidding.
talking about games you haven't played. Okay,
Yes,
this
yes.
is this is a game from one of my favorite publishers, one of my favorite teams of designers, and this game is Too Many Bones. This game has so many things going against it. Let's start with those. The first one is it is incredibly expensive. I mean, just the base game will run you $100 or so, and the expansions for just a couple new characters, it runs you nearly that much again. The artwork I find to be ugly. I think these characters look terrible. Um,
Yeah.
some people like it, and I can understand it, but I don't like the way that they look. I think they just all look ugly. It's got complicated rules that are terribly written. It's heavy in terms of weight. It takes up a lot of space. Lots of things going against it. The one thing that's going for it is that it is so wonderfully fun to play, so engaging. What you are is you're a team or just one of these characters, and you're trying to fight against some sort of tyrant, which is the big bad, and you have to uh, progress. You have a certain number of rounds to accomplish your goal. Each round, you're going to draw a card, which is a scenario card, which is going to give you two choices. Sometimes those choices are just sort of upgrade something or do some sort of story event or whatever. But more than not, those cards are going to be fight some series of monsters. And so you go over to this combat board, which we just showed, which was that sort of 4x4 grid. And it's a very tactical combat game. You're rolling your dice, you're using dice to attack, you're using dice for special actions, you use sort of your this value that you can use for movement. You're trying to kind of solve this combat puzzle, which is ever changing as different bad guys come in because you have a huge set of these things. And then, as rewards for winning the combat, you're usually going to upgrade yourself. And when you upgrade yourself, you can increase your stats, which is boring but necessary, or you can get these special custom dice that are built specifically for your character, which is a lot more fun. And there's sort of these progression paths, so you have to start somewhere, and then you can kind of get these better versions as you go along. And then as you sort of do that, your character is going to have access to more and more of their own special abilities. There are characters that are just impossible to hit. They can't do anything, but they can take a lot of damage. There's characters that heal. There's characters that shoot from afar. Your sort of standard tropes, but they're all different, right? This is a different fantasy world than the generic one that you might be familiar with. The characters upgrade differently. They can sort of have these different aspects of them that can unlock. They're all very different. The big bads are also interesting because they're all horribly overpowered, and you really have to spend your whole game gearing up to fight this big bad guy. And you know who it's going to be, so you can make those choices. there's treasure to find and other stuff to do. But the sort of real excitement of the game is upgrading your character, becoming stronger, and sort of being at the point where you think you are ready to take everything, and then you find something that can just devour you. And it's really just a lot of fun. I I love playing this solo and with two. Those are the two best counts. I've played it with three. I've not played it with more than three. But with solo or two player, this can be just a lot of fun, and it doesn't take as long as you might think. I mean, it can take a while. It's not considered to be a short game by any means. I really love the game for the game, and I'm willing to overlook all of its flaws, and there are many, just because I find the game so fascinatingly enjoyable.
Yeah. Okay.
This is not one that I would recommend to you for all of the reasons that I indicated are negatives.
Yeah. Yeah. I've just sounds boring to me. But
Well, it's
who
not.
knows?
This is one you might try, though, rather than going out and buying
It's I
yourself a
mean
copy.
boring to me. I mean, from my perspective, it sounds boring, so that's why I'm not tried this one. But who knows? Who knows?
Who knows? Well, we'll go back into the realm of games you've played with my number 10 from one of my very favorite board game designers. This is Underwater Cities.
Okay.
Underwater Cities is a game where you are building up, well, a series of underwater cities.
Hmm.
It's a game, it's actually, at its core, it's a worker placement game. What you're going to do every turn is place one of your little worker things out on one of these action spots and play one card. And that's sort of where the decision, what sort of differentiates it from lots of other games is the color of the card you play can match the spot you go to, but does not have to. If it doesn't match, though, it's kind of a waste. So you normally want it to, but the spaces and sort of the card abilities are balanced in an interesting way that, you have all these yellow cards, but you really want to do that green action, or however it could be the reverse depending on your scenario. So there's that interesting tension. And then you're building up your little network down here, and really you're building up your income. Because you're at the end of every so many rounds, there's going to be an income phase where you'll get to activate all the things you have out there. Some things give you points, some things give you resources, some things give you money. You're going to be playing cards that give you various upgrades that will make different aspects of the game easier or better for you. And you're building these cities, which are kind of the core linchpin of your network here. Because if stuff isn't connected to cities, it's not going to score. That's kind of it, right? You're going to play a certain number of rounds. There is an expansion that lets you kind of skip the first round, but start with extra stuff, which is kind of fun. And you're just going to do those things. This game it has so many possibilities because there's so many cards, and there's no way you're going to go through them all because there's three decks and you're only using each one for a third of the game. So there's a lot of variety to sort of discover. I love that the cards all have symbols at the top and then at the bottom tell you in words what they do,
Yeah.
because that helps you, you're never confused. What does this card do? If you are, you just sort of look a little lower on the card and it tells you. And that's nice, right? I mean, I don't know why we would ever not want to do that. Uh, but some games do. Anyway, I will say the game itself isn't maybe the best looking game, but I'm willing to look past that, and everyone I played it with has been as well, because the game itself is just so much fun.
Yeah. Component wise, the base game it can feel a little bit cheap. I wouldn't say it's the ugliest game because the card art is fine. Building up your domes, and when you build the tunnels and then you build the domes and build those kind of buildings around it, acrylic kind of a token things, it looks cool. It kind of looks cool. The
Yeah,
domes themselves.
I believe
Eh,
this was the first game from this publisher, and so they
yes.
weren't quite as sophisticated with the components
Yes.
as they have become since then.
Yeah. And it's not like the artwork is something extremely important from Vladimir Suki's games. You know, you can look at Pulsar, and then yeah, there's no art there.
None.
I mean, but then some of the others like Woodcraft and the Messina and the other one, I don't, lots of them.
Praga Caput Regni?
Yeah, and the new one with the Earth, whatever thing.
Oh, Evacuation. That one's coming. I haven't gotten that one yet.
Yeah, so the thing is that you look at these games, they look all complicated, and the artwork is not the main thing there, but it's
No?
kind of functional. It's always somewhat functional.
Yes.
Outward Cities is an amazing game, and I would say get the expansion. It's essential in a sense. It's just for the boards themselves. It's like
The
the
boards themselves is a
expansion.
big bonus.
It's a huge bonus, I think. And the other thing is that the different starting positions with the resources, you know, it's like the first turn skip guide and some modules like museum module and the extra some different city things. It's all small, but even the museum thing, it's kind of fun to have
It's
on
a
the
fun
side.
thing to try, right? It's just a small bonus.
So I agree. This
All right.
is an amazing game.
Well, let's go from this absolute looker of a game to another absolute looker of a game that I know you love, and that
Oh,
is Le Havre.
look, that's the one. I'll tell you. That's the one I want to try, despite me not liking Clemens Franz art at all. I'm not saying hating, because I'm trying to step away from saying the word hate.
Mhm.
Uh, and Uwe Rosenberg is not my thing, but this is the only game I'm willing to try at some point.
So the one thing I will say, if you ever try this game, try it with me. I love teaching this game actually, but play it two-player. This is a game where the player count really will influence your experience, and that is because you just get fewer and fewer turns. If you play with certain player counts, you're just not going to have enough turns to do what you want to do, and you'll feel like you just had an experience that wasn't a game. Uh, this is the most economic of all the Uwe Rosenberg games. Everything you do in this game gets you points, and but not directly. It feels like you're building stuff up, but what you're really doing is building these buildings, and every dollar you invest in a building is a point because the buildings are worth their face value at the end. So it's never a bad idea to buy or build one. You every turn you just really have one action. You can place your little worker. You just have one, uh, and it'll go out on a building, and you can do what it wants to do, or you can leave it where it is and take a huge pile of resources. The resources aren't all created equal, though. And just because there's a whole lot of fish doesn't mean you want to take them unless there's something you can do with them. It's a game very much about making sure you can do things with the things that you take. There are loans in this game and feeding your people because it's Uwe Rosenberg. Um, but it's a different concept here. If you take a loan, that's not always a bad idea. I mean, I've made it through games without taking one, but you can also easily pay them off, and a loan can give you access to much needed cash. So you can sort of take some, service them for a while, and then pay them off, and really not be any the worse for it. You lost a point or two just because you had to pay interest on it, but the game is all about very much sort of planning ahead, deciding what you're going to build. Because if you build the building everyone wants to use, then they also have to pay you some sort of a cost to use it. And there's a lot going on here. This is a complicated game, but it's really very satisfying because every turn you feel like you're doing something that's getting you something, and there's just so many options and things to try. Again, I strongly suggest playing this at no more than 3 players, and the rules also suggest that. Uh, but 2 is really the way to go for this one, I would say. Anyway, I really enjoy Le Havre.
All right. Cool.
All right. Next up, we have another game. This is a 2-player deck building game, one of the best deck building games out there, the second best one according to my list. And that game is Undaunted.
Mm-hmm.
So Undaunted is the World War II deck building game. There are several scenarios. There's the aerial scenario with Battle of Britain. There's the legacy campaign, which is Stalingrad. And then there's the other two, which are Normandy and North Africa, which are just sort of single scenario, play the game and see what you want to do. Scenarios are pretty simple. Usually you've set up this board, you have a small pool of cards that you can buy, and your ultimate goal is to sort of occupy certain spaces to get certain amounts of points, or to eliminate the other player. Sometimes the sides have different objectives. And the way you're going to do it is you draw 4 cards. You're going to choose one of those cards to throw away for its initiative value. And the initiative can be key in this game because you do 100% of your turn before the other player does. Which means, late in the game, if you're close to winning, you want to make sure you go first, because you might be able to sort of end the game before someone gets a turn. Additionally, though, if you attack the other player and you hit them, they have to take, if they have a card that matches the unit you shot, they have to take that card and throw it out of the game. I mean, you love culling decks. This deck will, your deck will be culled for you here. And that could mean that they're less able to have another turn or an action on their turn, right? You could ruin somebody's plan by going first and sort of taking out a key aspect of their strategy. And that's really fascinating. It makes this sort of bid for initiative thing actually kind of a tense decision. And then you're just going to play your cards. The cards do different actions. It's great. I do have a complaint about this game, and that is that it really needed a player aid. And the reason for that is the actions are just keywords. So there's the, there's the command action. And there's nothing about the word command versus the word inspire that will tell you, okay, this one is this action and this one is that. I have my mnemonic for doing it. I've successfully taught the game enough times that I know how to do it, but a player aid that sort of tells you what all these things do would be much appreciated. It's kind of like Imperium in that aspect. But the game is fast. You're really running in and just trying to do your things. Every game feels tense. Just like some of those other games I've talked about, you're within a turn or two of winning or losing. Either way, it's not cooperative. I will say that the Normandy and North Africa are my favorite of the two of the 4. I find Battle of Britain to be a little weird. It's almost a different game, and it's kind of hard to tell the units apart. And then Stalingrad is great. It's just a legacy campaign, so that might limit its utility in the broader world. But it's fun. And then there's the new space version coming out, which is going to be completely different, obviously. But anyway, if you don't love World War II, then wait for the space one. But if you don't mind World War II, this is a great game. It's the best World War II game there is. Second best deck building game on my list. And just so much fun to play and so quick and easy to get into.
All right.
Yep. You've not yet been Undaunted.
No.
All right.
I'm not.
Even if it's an Osprey game.
True. Just not the one I would just go out and buy and based on the theme, and it's like a 2-player only, and so that's few aspects. It's not like it's not a great game. It might be, but
you just
some of the
might
aspects
need to try someone else's copy.
Yeah, it's some aspects keep it away from my collection.
Very well. All right, moving on. This is another new game, meaning a game I played in the last 12 months for the first time. It's the last new game on the list. Even, I mean, I guess we do have another new game to the list, but this is, anyway. This is a game that I believe you played and did not love as much as I did, but there's no doubt that I enjoyed this game, and that is Revive. Very excited for the new expansion to come. This is one of those games that just kind of feels like it was made for me. What you're doing is you have this character board, which has a small special power. The characters aren't all that different. But what you're doing is you're upgrading your own technologies in this game. It's you're also trying to sort of go out on this bigger board, reveal things, which is how you buy new cards for your deck. It's not really a deck building game because you kind of just have these two hands of cards and you're kind of building those up, but you're never really going to shuffle your deck or do anything like that. But this is a game that really, at its core, is about deciding how you want to score. You start the game with 2 scoring cards. You choose one to keep, and that's great, right? It means you're going to score for these different things, and then you can kind of augment that scoring by reaching certain goals throughout the game and taking these scoring tokens. You're also trying to use your special ability the best that you can. You're building up your own technology. You're taking tokens off of this board as you move these things up tracks, which lets you customize your own set of special actions. There's a lot going on in the game. It's not a necessarily easy one to get into, but I think it's really just so fascinating. I was really blown away by this game when it came out, and I continue to be. It's one that I'm just always thinking, we could play that, or we could play Revive. And that is really what keeps it really high on my top 10. I guess we are in the top 10 on my top 100 list.
All right. Yeah. It's I liked it, but it's a bit too dry for me. It has
What?
it's too Euro-y for like it has some cool mechanisms, and then they thought that, in my opinion, then they thought like, oh, it's not Euro enough. Let's just throw in all the other bunch of stuff in it. I think it's a bit bloated for me,
Very well.
but still a good game. Yeah.
Let's go on. Also, better at lower player counts, I will say.
Yeah.
Let's go on to another game that you've played only the demo version of, unfortunately. And this game, and the very subpar demo version, this game is Twilight Struggle. Twilight Struggle, in its full format, is the entire history of the Cold War. In this game, you will take one of the 2 superpowers, and you are playing this tense area control game as you are trying to sort of inch out your influence subtly around regions. The game is kind of the prototype of the card-driven war game. Every turn, you are going to play a card, and if the card is your card, it's one that benefits your side, you have a choice of sort of action points versus some sort of great event that will benefit you. If the card is your opponent's card, however, both of those are happening. You just get to choose the order in which it happens. And in that case, you're trying to sort of advance your plans while mitigating the damage that your opponent's going to do when this card comes out. And so timing when these cards come out and understanding what is waiting in the deck is a huge aspect of it. Another aspect is many of the cards that you play that get played for their event, if they're going to be taken out of the deck forever, which means you're not only timing when you want to play the cards, you're trying to time the future reshuffles so that your opponent is more likely to have your cards in their hand rather than the other way around. It can be extremely tense and exhilarating as you go through and barely you're sort of it's a game where you're gaining just inch and inch at a time. Never, well, I mean, it can be a blowout, but rarely is it. And I just find the history here to be really interesting. It really conveys this historical aspect of all these events, many of which people have actually heard of, and and it just the tension and delight. A good game of full Twilight Struggle can be one of the most satisfying experiences that there is. There's some problems with the game, right? I'll admit it. I'll be the first to admit it, that the game is hideous. I also will say that this is a game where a player who has played it a few times will dominate it. I mean, it's not even close, because once you know what the deck is and what could be coming, it changes the way you're going to play. And so understanding what could come can cause you to make better decisions than another person who doesn't know that there's something that will blow up this strategy. So there's certain things you just don't do until certain thresholds have been reached, and you won't know that your first time or two through. But I really love Twilight Struggle. There was this short version that came out, which is an utter disaster. It's really very bad, and I disliked it. But the core original Twilight Struggle, I think, is just fascinating.
All right.
There we are. Twilight Struggle. And we move on to my number 5. My number 5 is a game that, as soon as it came out, I knew I knew this was a game for me. I played it. I acquired it at Gen Con that year, and it was a game for me. It was a game that I just, and still am, always wanting to play, and that is Unmatched. Mm-hmm. A couple of the youth from church have discovered they really like Unmatched, and sometimes will come over on Sundays for Unmatched afternoon. Unmatched is a game. At its core is a 2-player head-to-head combat game where you are going to take a character from some sort of place and fight against another character. The core mechanism of the game is these cards you have, which will activate. When you attack someone, you'll play a card, the other person can play a card, and you'll subtract the value of your attack from the defense that they have. There's also special abilities that are coming out on these cards, and then each character has a small special ability, which could be game-changing, but which sort of informs the way that you're going to be playing. I love the way that it does ranged combat, which is really simple. There's none of this, can I trace an invisible line from this spot to this spot? If you're standing on a blue space and your opponent's standing on a blue space, you can hit them. And it's just very simple. The boards, because of that, don't look great, but they're very functional. And in fact, though, on some of the later expansions, they've tried a less functional board where it's, you can see the board artwork and the colors are like these rings, but nobody really likes that, because the value of having this system is that you have these easy to see big blobs of color. My initial complaint with the game was that there were only 6 characters and that the game needed about 20. And, the Unmatched gods have answered my prayer, and now there's more than 30. Recently, very recently, Tales to Amaze came out. Tales to Amaze takes Unmatched and makes it into a cooperative game or a solo game where you can fight against one of 2 big bads. And it's interesting because it's nearly 100% backwards compatible. There's 1 or 2 characters that don't work as well, and so you just need to make a small adjustment to them. But it's great. I mean, the Tales to Amaze version is a great way to experience Unmatched, where you are going to, it has sort of the Aeon's End turn order mechanism, where it's kind of a random turn order. Everybody's going to go, but you don't know when. And you're trying to take out a big bad and a couple of minions if you'd like to. My only complaint with Tales to Amaze is that there are only 2 big bads, and there need to be about 15. So I've said my prayer to the Unmatched gods. Let's hope that it is also answered. And this game, I think, is a huge moneymaker for its publishers. So I wouldn't be surprised if more comes out. I just love Unmatched. It is best at 2. But I've played it 3-player free-for-all. I've played it 4-player. They work. It's just still best at 2. The characters are not balanced very well, but they're not supposed to be, right? It's supposed to be this experience against this experience. And I do find that everybody has a chance of winning. It's just some are a little more intuitive than others. But hey, I love Unmatched. I love Tales to Amaze as well, which is just more Unmatched. But it's great. The only problem now is that it's difficult to store.
Okay. Yeah, it's an okay game. Just not my style of a game.
It's not your style, but it is very much mine. All right, we're going on to games that really you should play, but you have not yet. And this is the best deck building game on my list, and that is Great Western Trail.
Mm-hmm.
Great Western Trail is a deck building and other things game. There are several versions of Great Western Trail now. There's first edition and second edition, which are mostly the same. There is Argentina and there is New Zealand. And the best of these is New Zealand, but they're all great. The core mechanism here is you have this cowboy that you're moving along this track. You will stop you can move a certain number of spaces, you'll stop and do an action. And the actions of themselves, you might think, okay, well, I can throw away this card to get $2. Why wouldn't I want to do that? Well, the actions are actually there to help you with your deck building, because your goal is to have all different cards when you reach the end of the trail. That's going to be your biggest bonus. If you have all different cards, you're going to get a big pot of money, and you can put out a token on these tracks to unlock various special abilities. And then you'll start the game again. There are spots there you can buy more cards for your deck. There's ways to cull things out. And you're using these actions not just to sort of get the immediate cash benefit, but with your long range goal of having this 5-card hand or 6-card hand at the end of the trail to turn them in. There are different, you can also build buildings which give you more special abilities and also can make things more difficult for your opponents who have to pay you a small fee when they cross over those buildings. You can sort of focus on the deck building aspect and just get cards that are worth a lot of points, because every card you add is going to be worth points, and also are worth big values. And you can move your train, at least in the base game, along this track to also, place these tokens out, get more points, get more special abilities. There's a lot of things that you can try and do and focus on. And then, it's sort of spun off into small iterations on that in the Argentina and New Zealand expansions. All of them are great. I would probably rank them New Zealand, regular, Argentina, but they are still, 90% of each of the games is the same core DNA. Just it's whether you want the different which of the different varieties you want. I love this game. This is the game that made me realize how much I enjoy games by Alexander Pfister. And it's the number one of his that ends up on my list. I really love Great Western Trail in all of its iterations.
All right. Sure.
Yes, and you have not yet played Great Western Trail, to my knowledge.
I've not. What's the reason behind that?
Well, perhaps you need to play it. The next game on my list, though, you have played.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And you liked less than me. I have its brand new expansion, though. And one thing that you disliked about it has been kind of solved by a very small rules tweak. But that game is Ark Nova. Ark Nova is the big game of zoo building. What you're doing in this game is you have this empty zoo. You're trying to fill it up with stuff. The core mechanism is almost from Conan, really. You've got this small river of cards. You're going to select an action, and where it is in position will be its strength. So if it's a position 4, you get to perform that action with a strength of 4. At that point, it slides out, slides back to the bottom, and is, in the future going to be at position 1. And then it's going to gradually build up strength over time, and then you'll be ready to do it again. You're selecting from these 5 sort of core actions, and using one action each turn, you're going to acquire cards, you're going to play the cards, and the cards have little requirements that you're trying to get, and they're going to move you up on this track. and the track is going to get you its points, sort of, but it's also going to be sort of your income amount. So moving up farther on this track is better. There's a second track that moves up faster. Essentially, each one's worth 3 points, and the game will be triggered when these two come together. The end game will be triggered then, but you're going to there's goals you're trying to go for. There's lots of stuff, and then in the expansion it adds some water animals, which are it's just more stuff, and then it adds the major aspect of this expansion is those 5 starting cards you have. Well, 2 of them are going to be different for you each game. So there's a short draft at the beginning of the game where you're going to draft upgraded versions of those starting cards. And there's 4 for each of the different actions. So there's a lot of variety there. And that just gives you a small edge. It's a small edge, but it can be really interesting. It's like, okay, I got the sponsor card. I don't really want to do the sponsors, but when I do them, I get this bonus. So maybe I'll focus on those this game. It's things like that. I don't find that I don't find that it's a major game change, but it's enough of a minor game change that just gives you sort of this feeling of variety, and I really enjoy it. Then the small rules change is some people don't like that your score is one track minus another. In the new editions, essentially, you add them together. So it's one track plus another. And that ends up it just helps you get a positive score. It ends up being the same mathematically, but it's, I don't know. I prefer the old version. I just don't like to do the math. And anyway, I love this game. This is a game that I'm always in the mood for. At 2 players, it's really good because it's fast. At 3 and 4, it's still enjoyable, but I really love it at 2. At solo, it's okay. I find the solo to be enjoyable, but there's a lot of fiddly stuff to keep track of. And I still remember the time that Victor and I played it at an airport. we pushed some tables together so that we could say it was a travel game. I'm really enamored with Art Nova still. And it's one of those games that every time I play it, I think I really want to play this game more. So that's my number 2.
3.
Number 3, yes. And I can tell that because there's a 3
that's
there.
a spoiler for the next, like in 2 years, it's going to be number 2. You spoiled it
might
right
be,
now. Yeah.
but I will tell you the top 2 games on my list are kind of sticky.
Look, I know them. I know both of them. Like even without it's just too obvious. Anyway, yeah, Ark Nova is a good game. It's the river mechanism of the cards is basically the same as in Civilization: The New Dawn and New Dawn, stuff like that. Which I like. This mechanism is amazing. I love this mechanism. The rest of the game, and it's the same as with Civilization and New Dawn. The rest of the game just doesn't excite me as much. It's like if that could be the mechanism and they could build a better for me game, or more suitable game for me around this mechanism, I would love to do that. And the theme of a zoo, okay, it's not there. It's barely there. I don't think it's a thematic game in a sense. You might argue there are some thematic, things going on, but yeah, I don't like polyominousness. I don't like the scoring in this that these are the 2 things I don't like at all.
Yeah.
But it's just my own personal taste. It's just like this river of cards is great. The rest of the game, just not my cup of tea. And I can see people loving this game. I'm sure it's amazing for others. I just
definitely amazing for me. And I definitely find this to be very thematic, right? I mean, you're building this zoo and filling it with stuff. Plus, you've got Daddy.
Yeah, Daddy, give me money.
Daddy, please give me money.
I would love to. I would love to see this mechanism in a cooperative game. That would
Have you
probably
played
be
Conan?
No. But I've heard in order to learn Conan, you have to sell your soul at least 3
Pretty much.
times.
Yeah.
Um,
Conan's not very good.
yeah.
But anyway,
Anyway,
I really love this. The one thing I will say is that this game is vastly improved by a product you can purchase on Etsy, which is this playmat that condenses the space way down. It is absolutely worth the cost. It's an unofficial product, but it redesigns the board so that it fits in about half the table space that
okay.
the board that the base game requires. So
Look, there's Daddy.
there is that. That's the daddy action.
Yeah,
Anyway,
Daddy. Sponsoren. Sponsoren.
all right. Well, let's move on then from my fake number 2 to my real number 2. And this is a game that
Wait,
this is just well,
let me guess. Yeah.
let you guess after you peeked at my list.
No,
Um,
no, no, no. That's I didn't see, like, I didn't look at your number 2, but I'm sure I know it. Um does it involve some ghost like creatures who were invaded by those terrible humans?
are those nasty Europeans?
Yeah, nasty.
Absolutely.
Oh yes, that's the one. Okay.
Now, I really am not impressed since you told me before we recorded that you peeked at the list.
I
But
didn't pick at this number. No,
you picked at
I
the number 1.
look, it's obvious. I know you love this
Yes.
game. It's been your
The
number 2 last time as well.
it probably was, and it's one that this is a game I play a lot. I mean, I will have Spirit Island days or weekends when I will just set Spirit Island up at this table down here and just play it. Just play scenario after scenario, spirit after spirit. Solo mostly. I do play this game mostly solo, and I think solo is where it shines. Although 2-player can be great, you can play with more players, but the players have to understand the game, and this is a hard game to understand. Right? There's so much stuff going on, and it's so very procedural. And that's what some people fail to understand is that this game is all about a set procedure and you are trying to break that procedure. And if you break that procedure and you put enough pressure in those breaks, you can win. And each spirit is giving you tools to apply pressure to that procedure. And I just love this. I mean, thematically, okay, right? I don't. The theme is one I enjoy. Right? You're this cosmic entity or this powerful natural wonder that is just pounding upon these people who have made the unfortunate decision to settle on your island. I love all the different spirits, and they're all very different. And it's subtle differences though, because the ocean, its ability is it is really powerful on the coastline, and it can't do a single thing inland. And that is both a major boon and a major handicap for you as you sort of figure out, okay, I mean, I can absolutely keep the coasts pristine, but I need to figure out what I'm going to do about the areas I can't touch. And that's a really interesting mechanism here. I mean, you've got to constantly be pulling things toward your area so that you can kind of preserve these spots. My favorite of the spirits is this one. It's this fog creature, and what it does is the people that get wounded in its area, they stay wounded. They never heal as long as you've got presence there. And so you can slowly whittle these people away, not with these surprising bursts like the ocean, but with this slow decay. And I just find that really interesting. There's, big explosive volcano. There's, a spirit that just is the strength of the land and just wants to keep things peaceful. There are so many things to do. And then if you get bored, right, if the 40 spirits or so that are available in the game now aren't enough for you, you can play these different scenarios. So you have different invaders. So instead of just playing against a generic team of people who came to the island, you can make them the Habsburg Empire, or whatever you want it to be. And then they'll have different special abilities, different things they're trying to do. It makes them harder. And there's 10 levels of difficulty, I think, for each one. And then there's also actual scenarios like, we're trying to, there's some sort of a story that's going on, and we're trying to dig up these artifacts and try to get them before the invaders do, or whatever you want. And those are going to sort of tweak the game slightly. Just so much here. This is a game that it could be your only game. I mean, this is a game that you could just play forever, and I love that about it. I mean, I've played this game hundreds of times, and that's not an exaggeration. I can pull out my stats here, but it's just one that I always want to play. I am leery about introducing. I've played it 327 times. I'm leery about introducing it to people, though, because it is not a game for everybody. It is a game for people who, if what I've described sounds interesting, and you're okay with heavy cooperation, right? It's a game where every spirit you add to it, it exponentially ramps up the difficulty of this sort of process because you've got more things to consider. And so you need the players to be equally yoked in this game. It's a long game. It can be. It's a big game. And if any of that doesn't sound exciting, or just the thought of this sort of intense cooperation isn't there for you, this might not be for you. But this is a game that's absolutely for me.
Yes, I agree with you. It's not for everybody, including me.
And now you've only played it the one time, and that's okay, right? I mean, that might be enough to tell you,
it's enough.
This isn't something that I'm interested in.
It's one of the things that it's not related to Spirit Island right now, but there was one thing where I think I commented on some post about somebody said again like, oh, you only like gave out your opinion about the game after one play, and it's like it's bad. Like, and I comment it wasn't on it was criticizing my opinion on the certain game. It was like just two people arguing, but then I'm gonna chime in and say like it's a myth. You can play a game one time and decide and understand the game and give out your opinion. It's a myth that you need to play more than once in order to review the game. It's just a myth. Some games you can just understand after one play, and if you didn't like it, you're not gonna like it. It's look, a myth. Remember that. It's unrelated to Spirit Island in the moment, but I just want to say that it's okay to review the game after one play, because some games you will never play again. Some games are so bad, for example, that you're like, oh no, like what's the point of playing this again if the game is broken? Anyway.
Well, that's true. I agree that for many games you can absolutely know this is something I really enjoy, or this is something I really don't enjoy immediately. And the rest comes from multiple plays.
Yeah.
I will say that the first time I played this game, I did not like it. I was like, what in the world is this? I don't see the magic. And this is one that really, I do think if you're going to like it, it requires you to put in a lot of effort. And so I think many people might have an initial, I'm not sure about this. And that goes away. And I mean, it goes away very quickly as you start to understand what the game is and really experience it. But again, this is not a game that I recommend. It's not a game I give away as a gift. It's not a game that I say, hey, I see you're here. I've got the game for you. Because it's not that kind of game.
I understood the concept. That's the thing. I understood the concept. Like, okay, I'm not saying it's a bad game, and it's gonna be an amazing game for many people. But yeah, after just one play, I could understand the whole concept of the game. I'm like, okay, will I be enjoying that concept if I play more? I don't think so. That's just my own, thing.
Yeah. Well,
sometimes you just know.
But if you play it 325 times, I bet you'll like it.
In order to play that many times, and not like it. You either need to be sadistic and just want to have depression in your life. Yeah, yeah. So you, you would not. I mean, you would not even play it like. I
No,
had some games. There were some games that I played more than once, sadistically. I mean, in a sense that I like, ooh, that's not a good game. Then I played it again, like something is wrong. I played it again, like, no, it's not a good game. Then I played it the third time, like, why I'm doing this to myself? That's that
you
was
do
that.
have limited time.
Look, I'm going to say that that game at that time, that game was also a cooperative game. That was Legends of Ender. After the Legends of Ender incident, I will never do that mistake again and play a game second time if I didn't like it at all. If I didn't like it at all, sorry, too many games out there. I'm not. I'm probably not giving it a chance.
What about
But yeah,
327 times?
that's
All
the
right.
whole year almost. Okay. Yeah.
We can
Anyway,
move on. All right. So,
yeah,
coming off
I moved
of
on.
Spirit Island, we go on to the game that's really always my number one. This is not a surprise to anyone who knows me. This is my most played game ever. Now, there are two versions of the game, and we'll talk about that in a moment, but the game is Summoner Wars. So,
Wow.
yeah. So, Summoner Wars 1.0, I had played at least 3,000 logged times. So, that was, that's I've definitely played that one. This is a game where you
Including
take
app.
a function, including the app with my brother, because that's who I play the game with mostly. We and the app logged the games, so that made it easy. But yeah, I mean, we would play this game constantly against each other, and even now still do. It looks like you've got 2.0 there. Doesn't matter though. The games are the two editions are 90% the same. So the core concept here is you have a summoner who's kind of your guy to protect. And you've got a faction of units that sort of support him and some special events you're going to play. You go out, it's tactical movement and attacking, lots of dice rolling, but at the core, the game is a hand management game because you only have 5 cards. And every card you play is a card you can't turn into magic, which is the resource you use to summon more things. And so you've got these interesting decisions of, all right, I've got these 5 cards. Which ones am I going to use? And at the end of the turn, which ones am I going to throw away? And normally when you throw something away, it's gone for good. Old Summoner Wars had 40 different summoners. And that was fantastic. So much variety. All of them were different, and that just was delightful. And I loved playing that game. New Summoner Wars comes out. They change a few things. They lighten up the artwork and generally make it better. Initially I had an adverse reaction to it, but as I've gone on with it, I can recognize that the new artwork is better than the old artwork, even though the old artwork has some charm to me. They also changed a couple of the rules, but only in small and subtle ways. One of them you'd only get if you played a lot of old Summoner Wars, and the other is that you can't gain magic by killing your own units, which I miss, but okay, whatever. Because when you kill a unit in the game, you get magic, which is again the resource you use to summon stuff. The game's quick. I remember at Dice Tower Retreat, there was a guy and he said, "Well, I said, "You want to play?" He said, "You have some time for a game?" And I said, "Sure. What do you want to play?" He said, "Well, I don't know. I have about half an hour." And I said, "Well, I know the game for you because I can set up, we can play it, and we can finish it and put it away in 30 minutes." And I love that about the game. It's fast. Okay, so some people can drag that down, but this was somebody I'd played with, so I knew he could handle it. uh, Second edition initially had only 6 factions, and that was, of course, keeping me with first edition Summoner Wars. Now there are a lot more. I think there's 18, and they come out with 2 every quarter. And so I'm really starting to get to the point where I mostly play new Summoner Wars. And although I'm never getting rid of my old one, because I think it has some things that it does differently that I really enjoy. New Summoner Wars is what I'm playing these days. Uh, for statistics, I have played New Summoner Wars 500 and 68 times. So, which is probably enough to have formed an opinion on it. I just love this game. It has all the tension of Twilight Struggle. I said that a game of Twilight Struggle that makes it that goes the distance is one of the best experiences I can have. This one gives it to me in 30 minutes rather than 3 hours. I love the variety of the different factions. That's something from Unmatched, right? I love sort of the different characters. It's all here in Summoner Wars. I love that it is a game that you get better at the more you play and the more you experience and the more you see how all the pieces work together. That's kind of like Spirit Island for me. I enjoy the deck building and customization, but I'm also fine just playing it with the base decks, which when I'm teaching people is what I always do. There's so much that I love about this game. This is a perfect game for me. I recognize that it is not going to be for everyone. If you don't like the head-to-head combat stuff, if you don't want to deal with learning all the different factions, okay, maybe pass on this one. But it's one that I am always looking to play. It's one that I am always playing, and it's one that I'm always going to continue to play, whether first edition or second edition. They are both fantastic, and it's probably going to be my number one game for quite a while.
Okay, yeah, it's in my opinion another game that it's not universally loved. You either like it or you don't. It's just how it is. It's a specific game in my opinion, very specific.
It's very specific, and for this specific person who's making the list, it is the best game.
Yeah. All right.
And that's it.
Okay.
We've made it through another top 100. Go back and watch the last 4 episodes of Wednesday Whimsy if you want to see my 100 through 21. Lots of great games there as well. But if you don't care about those, well, then you can just focus on the top 20, which is this list.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for watching, and I hope you like those games. Give out your opinions about those games and say stuff like, "And where are all the good games on this list?" and whatever, or like, "Kyle, you're amazing. We love you."
That's the one to go with.
Yeah. Yeah.
Also, check out Wednesday Whimsy every Wednesday evening, where I'll talk about some sort of board game thing. I'm not doing another top 100 for another couple of years, but it'll be something.
True, and we'll get to back to Würfelcast, like today's episode. Like,
sure.
In 2 weeks, we get another episode, and I'm also trying to do some more quick dives. I'm gonna start with a quick dive, talking about the 3 games called Origins, the first builders, Origin, the first builders. I always say it wrong. Then Tawantinsuyu and Mandala Stone. So it's
okay.
So these are the 3 games I'm gonna put in this.
Sponsored by Boards and Dice.
yeah. I thought I'm just gonna pile them up into one episode because it's like related to one company. So this will be the next quick dive I'm gonna do, and then maybe it depends on the schedule, but Gregor might join me on as a co-host of Quick Dive. We'll see about that.
All right. Well, good.
And I got him a microphone. It will not be crackling anymore.
Yeah, because the quick dive you did just the last week or this week was a little crackly still.
No, it's just the very beginning.
Okay.
It was just like 10 seconds of that, and then
okay.
Then it was fine.
Well, anyway, that's something we can talk about offline. But thanks everybody for watching this episode and for joining me, if you have, through the top 100. I had fun with it.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.